government needs to protect the environment because of pollution and all of that. But behind this lies the destruction of an entire community and a chance at this community ever being able to live, and that is why we think it's harmful. I have two arguments for you today. That is the principle why, regardless of the benefits building these dams might bring, it's still harmful to destroy these local communities. And my second argument, why it's harmful and unfair to infringe on the rights of these local people. So we would definitely not allow any company or even the government themselves to build a dam in this local community, and we would rather concentrate our efforts to protect the environment in other places like cities or wherever it is possible. So now on to my first argument. The principle why, regardless of the benefits it brings to the environment, the government should never step on the land of the local communities. So the first reason, because indeed these local communities and people that live in rural areas don't really cause much pollution, they don't use much fossil fuels, and in fact they are the people in the country who pollute the least and cause the least environmental damage. This means that they are less culpable for the pollution or any environmental damage that does exist in the world today, and therefore they should not be the ones who are punished for it. They should not be the ones held responsible to try and fix this damage. The culpability lies in the people in the city who indiscriminately use so much electricity and don't even care about how much fossil fuels they use. These are the people who are the biggest inflictors of harm, and if the government really wanted to protect the environment, then they should concentrate their efforts on the city and make the people in the city pay for all the environmental damage that they have caused. And the second reason why, because the value of land to local communities is much more to them than the land is to people in the city. So oftentimes these local communities have no other place to go. Their ancestors, forefathers, and their entire generation and history of the community has lived on that land, and they will not have a place to go if the government builds on this land. Rather, people in the city are constantly shifting houses. They have no capital to always just buy another house in the event that their land gets stepped over. Solely due to the fact that this land means more to local communities than it does to people in the city, the government should try harder to protect the land when it means more to the local communities. Yeah.
So when you talk about people having to move out of those cities, so the government builds that, don't they have a responsibility to make sure those people have houses to live in without them having to pay?
No, and I will explain why it's impossible to possibly compensate for the emotional tie that these local communities have to this land in my second argument. So why it's harmful and unfair to infringe on the rights of local people. So oftentimes this land is very important to them. Their ancestors lived there for so long, and they have a really close emotional tie to this land. They don't shift a lot, and they pour their entire heart and soul into building up these communities. Building a dam means clearing houses, desecrating graveyards, and ripping away the close ties that these local communities had to the place they live in. So why is this emotional tie so strong that it's impossible to compensate for? So the first reason is, like I told you, because their forefathers and ancestors have lived there for so long. And the second reason is they practice a lot of cultures and they base their entire life around this community. They often carry out like primary sector jobs like fishing and weaving, and these are stuff that can only be done in this community. In the city, there's an ample amount of jobs that people can shift to constantly. Certain portions of the Dayak people practice elementalism and believe that the nature that surrounds them is so important. They derive the very meaning and stability of their life from these surroundings, and if you destroy it, you are destroying not only their meaning but their ability to continue a life after that. Compared to the city people, they don't have much capital to rebuild their lives. Even if they somehow do get some capital, it will never be enough to restore their lives, to suddenly gain like 16 years worth of education to get a job in the city. And these people will forever live a life devoid of identity, and giving them a house to live cannot compensate for that. People in the city don't have much of an emotional tie to where they live, and that's why it's easier for them to move out. They have more capital to move out. But why is the environment secondary to, and that since it's now that we've established that this emotional bond is so strong, why is the environmental protection secondary to this? So the first thing is that the people in the village, in these local communities, would be the ones who are the most affected if the government decides to step on their land. This means that they should have more of a say. Are they okay with the dam being built on this part of the land? Are they okay with the dam being built next to this river? Since they are the people who are affected the most, they should have the most say in what is being done to their land, and therefore have an ability to reject it if necessary. The second thing is that there is no point saving the wall if we cannot protect the meaning and the value it holds. So on the side of government, we will say that it's more important to facilitate meaningful life in a short period of time compared to creating meaningless life for vulnerable individuals for the rest of eternity. What do I mean by this? So even if you're able to create a better and healthier environment, the lives that people will live will never be happy, they will never be comfortable. If you say you're protecting the environment to protect the people, you aren't really doing that at all. Rather, you are ripping away their ability to live a happy life, and the point in which they are less happy with the environment being protected than without the environment being protected. We think the environment now becomes secondary. Notice that it's always the easiest to step over and build over indigenous people's land because they never have anyone to protect them or to protect the emotional tie that they have to this land, and that is why the government needs to stop the construction of the dam to protect these individuals in local communities. People in cities always have an ability to say no. They can carry out protests and often pressure the government more than people in local communities can. And that is why we need to protect these local communities more.
I thank Prime Minister for his speech. I invite you to competition.
Something that side government needs to understand that if a country wants to develop, then they need to include rural areas in this development. We need for development. So when you utilize them to make produce a lot more, at least when we give a chance for them to enter the market by utilizing them with faster technology and so on and so forth, which I'll explain more in my speech. So today in my speech, I'm going to tell you first of all my principle, and then I'm going to talk to you about necessity of these dams being built specifically in rural areas, while my Deputy Leader of Opposition is going to talk to you about how the government will economically protect these people in rural areas. So before that, one rebuttal on government side, right? Rural people, they don't pollute as much as city people, as people in the city. Therefore, people in the city, they need to have more importance to get this hydroelectric dams, right? But understand this: alternative energies are largely inaccessible. There's not many plants to generate this energy. Therefore, this shows that we are a lot more incentivized to prioritize giving these hydroelectric dams in rural areas like in Sarawak because they need it the most. Because we think that people in the cities, on the very basis that people in the cities are a lot more privileged compared to those in rural areas, they are a lot more open to a lot more alternatives like eco-friendly cars and so on and so forth. We don't think that they should we should get these hydroelectric dams. We think that rural areas need it the most, right? So why is it so important? So before that, why is it so important for these dams to be built in rural areas? Right? This is my policy integrated into my argument too. Please sit down. Three things. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to leave a portion of the land to people in rural areas. This means how our road is going to look like is that areas are going to live side by side with the hydroelectric dams. It's going to protect them from pollution, because at least we provide like some form of protection to people in rural areas compared to that side. We didn't give like any kind of alternative. And we think like these dams are going to supply like a substantial amount of energy for them to live like a more quality life. For example, light. Light, and then we also give like electricity for them to carry out farming activities. And then this shows that we're going to facilitate like more production, like more development, and we're going to include rural areas in the market, as I said before. This shows that when you allow these people to live side by side with the hydroelectric dams, then they are able to utilize this electricity for them to live a better life. For that opening.
How can you say that people in the rural areas need the dams more than people in the cities when they don't even use things like electricity or vehicles to pollute the environment?
We think that it's so outrageous for you to say that, because I clearly stated to you that at least our side provides like some form of way to for them to use, because okay, we think that people in rural areas, they need electricity. Why so? Because people in rural areas, they carry out like traditional like farming and all that. We think at the very least we lessen the burden on our side, because we think people in rural areas, they also do some form of like economic business. And we think that people in rural areas, they are also entitled to carry out their jobs a lot more faster. Which brings me to my second point. Like how exactly will the government invest in these rural areas, right? Because the reason why we put these dams in these rural areas is because we trust the rural areas to use the electricity for farming and such to develop the area. We provide like a faster form of technology, a safer, modernized technology for them to increase production a lot more. We provide a safer light for them to make tasks easier in the dark, and we also provide a safer heat, so that they're able to like produce like much more like high quality crops and so on and so forth. So before we are going to stop the construction of the dam for a moment, and we're going to educate them and explain how deforestation worsens on their side, and then how like these dams are going to make their life become a lot more easier. And then we're going to continue the construction of the dam once we establish how these dams will benefit them the most. So we think like the main clash in this debate is like whether we should trade off their home for like better progression. We think that we already established to you that we're going to leave a portion of their land to them. We think that it's best for them to live side by side with this technology, because it utilizes the community to progress. We think that they should be included in the country's development, because we think like, oh yeah, even if they're going to say like, the people in rural area, they don't pollute as much as people in the city, but so does that mean that people in the rural area are not entitled to be given these hydroelectric dams? So what I told you for today is I already told you how our side ensures a much more sustainable future for people in the rural areas, because we provide a chance for people in rural areas and also for people in cities, and I'm also established to you how these dams are necessary. For the progression of these rural areas. So that's
Thank you, Leader of Opposition. I invite Deputy Prime Minister.
So I genuinely believe that opening opposition really misses the debate. So before I move on to my responses and arguments, let me tell you what they did wrong. Let's clarify, right? building dams in these indigenous areas isn't a privilege for these people, because the motion itself assumes that these individuals object to it, and based on the calculus that they have made between the benefits that opening opposition posits to you and the desecration of their graveyards, they have already made that calculus and have decided that it is a bad thing for these dams to be built. The question then becomes, should we override the rights of these indigenous people in favor of the environment? Opening opposition cannot build a case around telling you that indigenous people are better protected when hydroelectric dams are built, because they can't assert that they want dams. It's not a privilege, it's something they don't want. That being said, I have two questions in response to opening opposition. Firstly, is it principally justified? Secondly, is there necessity? So with regards to the principle on culpability, so note that our case wasn't that they are less culpable, therefore they don't deserve hydroelectric dams. Rather, is they are less culpable, therefore the people that have to go through their houses being demolished, or have to go through amenities being taken away from them, or graveyards being desecrated, those harms should be borne by the biggest inflictors of harm, the people that use fossil fuels the most, the people in cities, because they are more culpable for these harms. But secondly, them conceding that rural people are less culpable directly proves the point that their rights therefore shouldn't be infringed upon. So on a principle level, regardless of the environmental benefits it brings to you, the concession that people in rural areas are less culpable concedes that their rights therefore should be less infringed upon, like to some lesser degree. But thirdly, even if you don't believe that, note that there was a really important principle coming from Prime Minister that was unresponded to. That oftentimes the value of this land for these indigenous people are more important than for a person living in the city. Because rural people often don't shift much, they don't have capital to move areas. So they build stronger ties to those lands, and their identity formation is premised upon that land. As contrasted to a person in the city where their land doesn't mean much to them. They can shift houses at any time, they can shift jobs at any time. Why is this particularly important? Have a seat. Because this means that by virtue of the land being more important to indigenous people, we should take away something less important from people who don't care about it as much. Because on the net, we sacrifice less, the point in which people in cities don't care as much about it because they can still live some semblance of a life. The comparative is, indigenous people find it harder to live a more meaningful life because the land was so much more valuable to them than for people in the city. Secondly, is it a necessity, right? One, note that this concept, like this cop-out, right, that if you leave, that we are going to leave part of your land for you. Why is this a cop-out? Because if you say that you leave part of your land for them, then all your benefits are watered down because you have less of a dam, you have less capacity to protect the environment, less capacity to create economic activity. So your concession that you leave part of the land waters down all the benefits you talk about. Secondly, have a seat. I really think there's less of an urgency than opposition poses. Because there's still some capacity beyond these dams to mitigate the environmental damage that is currently happening, be it like placing restrictions on factories to how much they can do, setting policies like carbon taxing between countries. The point is, it's true that you protect the environment more in the world of opposition. However, we think the fact that we can mitigate it means that it's not as urgent as opposition pushes it to you. Have a seat. But secondly, they told you it's necessary because of the economic activity you bring. So why is it that indigenous people are more protected economically speaking in our world? Because Prime Minister gave you a wealth of analysis on why oftentimes the skills that these people have are suited to that specific area. Be it when they fish, be it when they weave, it's often very tied to that specific area. The point in which you move them out of these areas, their skills are now obsolete. And the only way they can grow or retrain often takes a lot of time, which means they cannot sustain the activity that they necessarily want to sustain. But let's bite the bullet, right? Even if economic activity is less, even if the environment is better protected in the world of opposition, why do we still think it is necessary to engage in this? But before I go on, yeah, sure.
Considering that this will bring economic benefit, what's your alternative to individuals in these rural areas who live horrible lives, poor lives, and their kids can't go to school?
Yeah, so I think that's the false assumption in the opposition bench, right? That they live horrible lives by virtue of them not having not having as much electricity or not having as much access to cars. I would put it to you that they want these things, and oftentimes these things, this seclusion and this isolation from the modern world is often something they want to do. And it assumes that they're in opposition to the dams already, so you cannot make an argument about how they will live better lives in the dams. But even if they somehow in the long term, let's say they're really irrational and they don't know that they will live better lives later on, we think one, we should prioritize what we know for sure, right? So it is definite that indigenous people at this time are in opposition to these dams, and therefore that is the most rational choice that we can take in creating the decision process. But even if economics and the environment is better protected in the world of opposition, why do we still support our model? Because one, we think the principle of like the environment we would stand for is that we need to create meaning for people like in the short amount of time we have. So even if we prolong survival in your world in the best case scenario, we think the most important thing is to facilitate meaning for human beings as long as possible in a more sustainable way. Because the point in which you can no longer facilitate meaning, there is no point in surviving anymore because individuals don't feel protected. But secondly, on a principle level, we think we need to protect the most vulnerable individuals in society. Considering that these people have had the most harm inflicted upon them, we cannot hurt them. But before I move on,
So how does a better life for people in rural areas look like? How do you include them more in the discussion?
Yeah, a better life is not clearing their houses, a better life is not desecrating their graveyards, a better life is making sure that we respect their choice to not absolutely destroy the identity that they've taken so long to build. That being said, why do we think that we protect the environment better? Because often, and the premise of this argumentation is that the environment to some degree needs to be a collective effort. But the point in which we infringe on an indigenous person's right, they are no longer going to compromise with the government, no longer going to compromise with any efforts taken by indigenous people. So it's harder to start other projects that are less invasive, like better water usage and so on. For instance, in the Virunga National Park, local communities help to keep out poachers. And these are things that the indigenous people are no longer going to compromise to do, even if it isn't as invasive, even if it isn't as horrible. These people are no longer going to opt into your policies and have any effect or any effort in helping the environment. We rather world where individuals are more capable of compromising, and even if they don't compromise, we should not take away the very rights that they deserve, the very things that human beings like them should always have. I've never been proud of it.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Opposition.
On-site opposition that by the building of these dams, where you supply people with alternative resources, you guarantee a future for them once non-renewable resources are depleted. If it garners the most amount of benefit for the most amount of people, sure, we'll take it, right? Two things I'll be doing in my speech. Firstly, I'll be responding to the speaker before me, and then I'll be giving out my arguments, right? Firstly, they want to talk to you on how now let's just deal with the problem of adaptation and jobs, etc. that government wanted to bring, right? We think that under us of the house, sure, we drive these people out of their homes. Sure, they have to adapt at some point, but we think under outside, we're willing to provide them with the education that they need in order for them to adapt to staying in cities and such. Right? We think that it's more important for these people to get the most amount of education for them to be able to sustain themselves in the worst case scenario, rather than under their side where they're going to continuously live in their comfort zone, right? And under our side of the house, even if you push these people to out of their comfort zones and such, if it means that they're going to get the most amount of education, it means that these people can live in under better circumstances, sure, we'll take it, right? Next, you wanted to just assume, right? It's so convenient for them to say that these people in cities have no emotional touch, and therefore it's justified for us to build dams and such in cities. Our response is this. Sure, you disrupt emotional ties, but we think it's for a greater good. Because it means that once you move to cities where electricity is sufficient for you to live, where people can get proper education in these cities, we think it's a fair trade-off we're willing to make, right? Sit down and just started. We think, and the outside of the house, when you put these people in cities, sure, we have to drive these people out of their homes, sure, this small portion may not be able to compensate for them, but we think that once when you trade this off for a better education, for a better future for these people, we're willing to take it, right? Next, they wanted to argue that people in rural areas don't use electricity, they don't pollute, therefore they shouldn't have to compensate. Two responses to this. Firstly, obviously they do because they have to, how do you think they harvest all their farms and whatnot, right? But secondly, even if they don't, we think it improves how behind they are in progression in this world, right? We think that it's harmful because the gap between these urban and rural areas is so big. We think that on the outside of the house, when you put these people in cities, when you allow them to get the amount of education that they deserve, that is when the gap between these two areas get even narrower. We think that on the outside of the house, these people, on their side, these people get less education. They'll never be able to adapt themselves once their homes are destroyed, right? Something that will happen anyway. We think that they wanted to argue that objection will happen and such. if there's so much of a problem, it's a problem worse under their side of the house. Why? Because in cities, more people live there, and their policy includes having to build dams and putting a carbon tax and such. We think that under their side, you're going to affect a lot of people. These are the people we think that when you harm even more people, it's even worse under their side of the house. We think that under our side, the amount of people you harm is even less, and at the very least, you offer them a better alternative in life, right? Next, they wanted to say that these people's better life and such includes we think that the cost is destroying identity and such. We think that sure, they lose some bit of their identity, but if it means that you allow them to expand further, if they can sooner or later adapt in the future, we think it's a fair trade-off we're willing to make. Before I go on arguments, Prime Minister.
We told you how local communities have such a close tie with this land due to the wealth of history and identity they built today. What makes you think they value education more than their land?
Yes. At one point, these rural areas are going to be gone anyway. Under your side, you're not going to guarantee a future for these people anyway. We think that under our side of the house, sure, their emotional ties will get disrupted. Sure, you're going to lose some bit of identity or a bit of your home and such. But we think that at the very least, these people have a chance at a better future where they have the proper education for them to progress in this world at the end of the day, right? Moving on to arguments on why we develop an overweight tradition. On progression, right? How do we think progression happens even better? With that, people in rural areas, indigenous people, right? They're stuck in their own bubble. They're never going to be able to expand because they don't feel the need to do so. We think that on the outside, you're pushing them into these cities. Sure, it's going to create some form of backlash in the future, but we think that at the very least, these people can sustain themselves once their areas are gone. We think that tradition, you're never going to be able to hold on to tradition forever, but you get to hold on to education for a lifetime. And therefore, we think that it's a better future for these people at the end of the day, right? Next, let's move on to why modernization is necessary, right? We think that with education, education is a very variable thing, right? Meaning to say that you can climb up the social ladder, and once you are exposed to how urban areas are like, you're going to be able to adapt at a certain point. We think that under their side, right, you're encouraging them to go farming, you're encouraging them to just pick berries in forests and such. It's never going. You're not going to let them ensure a proper future for the people at the end of the day, right? They're never going to be able to sustain themselves just by farming and fishing and such. We think that you have to be involved in things like in working in factories or in business corporations and such, if you want to ensure that you get a better future for your family at the end of the day. We think that on the outside, this is the long-term benefit that we can argue on. This on the outside, we have a better government where people's futures are guaranteed at the end of the day. Now, let's talk about why damage is less on the outside of the house, right? We think that sure, we'll destroy some forests in one area and such, but it's a one-time thing because these alternative resources are something that can carry these people for a lifetime. Under their side, if you're not willing to build these dams in certain areas, you're going to continue to cut down trees in order for your people to survive. You're going to continue to rely on more renewable resources and continue destroying the environment, not creating a better world for your people to live in. But then on the outside of the house, it's a one-time thing, and on the outside, when this deforestation gets less in the future, I think that is a better world that we prefer to live in, right? Sure, it's going to take a long time. Sure, it's some slow change. It's the most effective change for people on the ground, right? Next, on governmental protection. We think that the very idea that the reason why this construction of dams is here, right, is because of investment. So meaning to say that in order to make sure that that investment is successful and is carried out properly and no backlash happens, it means government has every incentive to take care of the people on the ground as well, right? Meaning to say that we're willing to put in funds into these people's education. Meaning to say we're willing to put in funds for these people's welfare because we don't want any backlash to happen for investment that we want. We don't want these investments to fail. Therefore, we think that the welfare for these people is taken care of. We think that these people's futures will be taken care of. They'll be able to sustain themselves even when their homes are destroyed, right? We think that under outside the house, it brings a significant amount of benefit to people on the ground, especially those in rural areas. And I've never been prouder to oppose.
Thank you, the leader of opposition. So the closing half of the debate, I invite a member of government.
unfortunate that a large majority of side of opposition assume that things like education and things like healthcare were a moral merit good that apply also to indigenous communities. But here's the thing, we need to realize that the benefits of education, etc. come at the expense of the lives of individuals. Not only that, but it's also a privileged concept that you grew up thinking is right. Here's the thing, these indigenous communities grew up thinking they didn't need your form of privileged education in cities. They have their own form of education, and these comes in ways in which you survive within your specific lands and the way of life that they live on a daily basis. It's unfair for you to impose your social construct of what a merit grade benefit is onto communities that don't believe the same beliefs that you do. I have one extension in this debate on how you rip away consent and dignity from indigenous communities. And here's how we'll differ from the side of opening government, because they talk to you about emotional ties and how you take away happiness. We'll tell you about consent and the ability, how you take away the ability for indigenous communities to opt out of these kinds of situations. But before that, several points of rebuttals. First, on this idea of the necessity for you to have dams. So here's the thing, there are a lot of other areas in which you can have like environmentally friendly projects that doesn't necessarily have to breach the lands of these indigenous communities. It's just that it's more expensive for the governments to do so, and that's why they don't want to do it. It's convenient for you to trash the lands of indigenous tribes because they don't have much representation, but it doesn't mean it's right for you to oppress them and take away that form of consent that they have. But secondly, here's where they wanted to tell you how they'll build the hydroelectric dam next to their land. So here's the thing, regardless of how much of land you take from them, the very fact that you're already taking that land from them, regardless of how big or small that place is already problematic. The fact that you need to build a dam there that causes noise pollution to their daily lives already shows that you disrupt their lives regardless of how much of land you take. The very fact that you're developing their area without their consent is already horrible. But here's the thing, the deputy wanted to tell you about how like the rural areas won't last forever, and that's why you desperately need to integrate them within society. So the first thing is this, the reason why rural areas won't last forever is because you guys keep developing their areas, you keep taking up their lands, and you keep breaching their own consent within those areas to opt out. The very ability for them to live in the first place is one that they need to be able to choose, but also your dams cause impermanent damage to the land next to them. When governments have failed projects and they decide to completely abandon the projects there, the rural individuals are the ones left to deal with this kind of impermanent damage that your side of the house does very little to compensate. But we'll be the first house in this debate to be reasonable. What happens when, oftentimes what happens when governments decide to develop rural areas? So oftentimes they reallocate these individuals into the cities, into really low quality flats and really cheap ones. This means that these are the individuals that are forced to get a job within that area in order to earn money to sustain themselves, because they can no longer rely on what they've always been learning to live. This means that you force them to integrate within a society that is A, unaccepting, but B, also extremely discriminatory against them. The very reason why we don't force communities to integrate immediately now is because we recognize there is a significant problem forcing integration upon people who don't even consent to it. It's horrible that you would make these individuals compete against millennial individuals with their millennial jobs when they went to university and they have so much of an upper hand when it comes to fighting for jobs and having better education, because they were just so much more privileged than these individuals. Moving on to my extension on how you rip away consent and dignity from these indigenous communities. Because firstly, the very fact that you're taking up their river to build your dam also means that you're breaching their land in the first place. Obviously, governments don't care whether or not they have a special value to it. So this means that that river could be religious, and it could provide solace and dignity for that community to protect. This means that you take away that river from them impermanently, but this also means that you take away their very ability to live. But secondly, do they really have a say when it comes to governmental development and infrastructure and growth? Because here's the thing, oftentimes governments don't care care about whether or not these indigenous communities actually consent to you having development within their areas. Because number one, they lack a lot of representation when it comes to making decisions. That means in parliament, these are oftentimes your privileged people from cities. You rarely have really rural area people coming in to talk, to represent the local communities and what they actually think about the dam. But secondly, here's where they wanted to tell you about the great things about development and how the local communities benefit from them. Here's where I will tell you it's a lie coming from side of opposition where they tell you that these local communities benefit from your development. It's untrue. Oftentimes we see wealth going back to concentrated cities and concentrated areas where you find investments. This means the same way KL is so much more developed compared to Sarawak, to Kuching within Sarawak, is because we keep robbing their indigenous tribes of their land and taking credit for their land in the first place. We think this is the same thing that happens in a lot of cases where you will take the land in which they have in that area, develop it, and take them. The rich people within KL benefit the most from exploiting the resources of these communities in the first place. But secondly, that means that the thing of comparative, the trickle-down benefits that you get from development don't ultimately go back to these individuals. But also, it's unfair to assume that it's a benefit to them because they don't even consent towards you taking away their area. But you also remove the ability for them to opt out of these kinds of situations because their land is permanently damaged and they cannot go back to their lives that they wanted to in the first place. It's time we stop, as people from KL and people that are extremely privileged, we stop development. We should stop having development that comes at the expense of stripping away consent from these indigenous communities and taking away the very dignity they have to live. It's unfair for the side of opposition to keep telling us that they need education. But here's the thing, the type of education they live on is very different from what you have in cities, and it's unfair for you to impose these standards of what great education is and what a great life composes off onto them.
Thank you, member of government and member of opposition. Here.
So the opposition side had talked about how development is good, how it will benefit the new children who is living in the rural areas where they will be given a chance to get quality education in the cities, right? On our side, we believe that these are merely assumptions, and in this debate we'll tell why so. So I have a few issues right here. So moving to the issues, the first one, which is development and consent. So they said, they always repeated that, oh, development is good, that they'll get better medication, education, etc., right? So on our side, we say that firstly, these people who lived in rural areas had already found their own form of medication and education, right? So merely forcing them to a new environment where they are forced to learn different and foreign things, don't you think it actually harms them more than it benefits them? Sit down. This is because that these rural areas, people had already learned their own ways of medication and education, which is suited in their own lives in either way. Sit down. Secondly, where they say that development is good, right? We say that development is only good if the people in the rural areas consent to it. Because most of the times the rural areas do not have the right to say anything. They don't have any consent to say anything about this issue. So of course, even if they would not agree, the government would still enforce or force them to build the dams in the rural areas either way, right? Sit down. So, for example, sex can be great, right? But when sex is forced, it becomes rape, and this is wrong. This is the same thing between giving the choice and being forced to build inside these areas, right? So moving on, where they said that how opening opposition had already said like, oh, we are telling the procedures about how we're going to deforest, going to tell them how deforestation happens and how these electro dams gonna benefit them in the near future, right? We say that firstly, as I said before earlier in my speech, they do not have any way to say anything about this issue. So even if the majority of the people disagree to it, they will still enforce it into the rural areas either way. And this forces them to leave their houses, which my speaker had already said before, and I will continue. Okay. And closing opposition, where they assume that the new children who are born in these rural areas, where there will be these new children will be attached to this land, where they will be interested in going to KL and getting a quality education and whatnot, right? Getting a better job or whatever. Sit down. So, firstly, we say that this is merely assumptions. It's because that these new children, although they are new, these parents had already taught them the ways of life, right? What you should expect in a rural area. So, this assumption means that all new children would want to go to KL to learn new education, or just because they want to get a job. We believe this is merely an assumption, and said that these children would have their own way of thinking. So this assumption is wrong. Sit down. So, so I'd like to talk about how, as we repeat, how this wealth assume that these hydroelectric dams were enforced into these rural areas, right? So we would say that these wealth that have gotten from the development of rural cities, as my speaker had said, these money would only go to rich concentrated cities, right? Sit down. And they had said that they would still use a portion of money because portion of money to help these rural areas to develop them furthermore. We say that even they give a portion of wealth to help them in development, right? We say that this is actually unfair because the rich concentrated cities are taking most of the wealth and it would not benefit the rural areas anyway. Sit down. Moving on, where my teammate had already said that, for example, like those when you install these hydroelectric dams into these areas, right? Like for example, in the rivers, the religious rivers, we say that as my yes, before that, sure.
It's even more unfair for you to take away that opportunity that those new generation will have. Secondly, those people, the new generation who are born in those new areas, what ties will they have?
Yeah.
Can you repeat that?
Firstly, it's even more unfair for you to take away the potential opportunities that the new generation can have. Secondly, the new generation is already born in those new areas. What ties will they have?
As I said before, these people, where you take away the opportunities for new children, right? We say that these new children do not want this. This is, as we said before, many times before, these are merely assumptions that all new children will want to get new education from KL or whatever, right? So, in my comparative, so that in our side, we say that we protect the rights of these people, where we're going to at least protect them from what they would say development is good, right? And secondly, that we say that the trickle-down effect, where they would say that, oh, it's going to benefit the rural areas. We say that this is totally inefficient, which I said before in my speech. And lastly, we say that we protect these new children from having these weird assumptions that these oppositions have made repeatedly and repeatedly before. For all these reasons, you should go with closing.
Thank you, government. With ending this debate, I invite opposition. Here.
Side government only seems to be focused on protecting the old generations, but they fail to realize that the new generations have already changed, and that is the reason why, like even in other states, people in rural areas they always try to move to developed cities as much as they can for a better life, and under side government they are taking away the potential that the new generation could do to our own country. Before I start with my issues, I have a few rebuttals. Firstly, on side government's case, we think it's even more unfair to take away the opportunities for the new generation of what they can actually do. Secondly, they were saying that they have their own medicine or whatsoever, but all medicines can't solve all diseases, and that's why there's such thing as research to research for better medicine for people to heal. Also, staying in the old trades like fishing, they can't get you all the money to accommodate for your whole family. And why do the new generation have to suffer by virtue of parents like having ties just for that place? We really don't think it's unfair. We really don't think it's fair. I'm going to start with my first issue now, which is which side provides a better future for the indigenous people? fine. Opening government stated that it's not what they want. Okay, fine. But under your side, that is where they will always stay uneducated. At least our side, we give them better education. How is that so? Number one, when we build dams, it helps to improve the economy, like what side opposition already explained. And when Sarawak is more stable, that's where more industries are incentivized to invest in Sarawak itself, opening up better job opportunities for people there, and they can send their kids to higher education now that they have the money and improve their children's lives. And number two, Daphne stated that integration should not happen like all of a sudden now. Okay, fine, maybe it shouldn't happen all of a sudden, but your side is gonna make it even worse, because when the new generation wants to move to cities to work or to find education, it's harder for them to integrate now when people see them as classify them in the group that does not want development of the country itself.
Closing. It's not a zero-sum game. You can opt into development if you want, if you're within rural areas in Sarawak. You have universities within Sarawak itself, like Unimas, or even you can come to MCKL. But the difference is, in our side, you can consent to that development.
Okay, fine, you can consent to that development, but you already stated yourself, the people, like, they think they have ties, they think they have ties to their land, and people, and you stated that the government should not step on their land, and of course they will not opt into, they will be less likely to opt into going into development and whatsoever. Okay, the closing government stated that most of the money will most likely go to KL. Okay, fine, but the reason why KL is more developed is because, like, last time they wanted to develop, they were more consent to it, whereas in Sarawak the indigenous people always kept saying no. No, thank you. And now that, however, under our side, when we develop Sarawak more, it improves the economy and it attracts people to build buildings there, people to build more schools. Even if even if the KL is still the top there, but the country is as a whole, which means that Sarawak will also gain profits from that. Just like my MOO was the only one in the opposition bench to state the trickle-down effect. They'll still get their money, even in the worst-case scenario where KL gets even more and Sarawak does not develop much. But at least the government itself has invested in Sarawak to try to improve it. At least now, you have people there have more renewable electricity. They have they can generate electricity more.
Even if you provide environmental and economic benefit, these people's identity should be protected and they should have ownership over the lives they lead. Because if not, their lives are meaningless and all the things opening government talked about will happen.
That is in my second issue, which I'll move on now. But before that, second issue, whether it's better to override the rights or not. We in closing opposition, we say we should because it brings more benefits than harms. Government said it shouldn't because it's their freedom and whatsoever. But how does closing government make things better? Because firstly, they say no because they only think of protecting their lands. They don't really have much education. So they tend to make irrational choices. But we think that the government can do better, and since they have more information, they should be the ones deciding whether to do or not. Why is that so? Because you, as a country, you elected them. You knew that you chose them to lead your own country. That means they know the country better, and we don't think that people should always control the government to do whatever, because the government is the one leading it. Like Maya said, like even in KL, if the government wants to develop, the government can develop it. If side government thinks that it's for for the development is for the worst is not true. Because why is that so? Because every government does not want its country to fail. So the government will try to do its best to develop their country and to improve their economy as a whole. However, what you will get under side government, where people have a right to choose, they will be more likely to say no because they think it's their land and they shouldn't. Government should not step on it. Then Sarawak will be more likely not able to expand as a whole, and they will be still in this cycle on and on. And with that, I rest my case.
You mentioned the debate.